Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your archbishop of Banterbury, your evangelist of the imagination, and your existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, me, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I'm robcasting at you imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. Welcome. This is Robservations episode number 633. Robservations is the show about something. You know, one of the things I do love about this show so much is, well, you, the audience, you members of the Post-Geek Singularity, you imagination connoisseurs, you guys write in, I read the letters, I think about them. And there was a letter a couple days ago from a viewer who was worried about the PG-13 rating of Coming to America 2, which drops on, I think, Friday, on the 5th. Coming to America 2, and he loves Coming to America. It's one of his favorite films. He talked about how much it meant to him and his friends and was worried that the raunchy body fun represented by the first film might be somewhat curtailed with that PG-13 rating. What did it mean? Are we getting a kindler, gentler group of people from Zamunda? Or can we expect more of Dolomite is my name kind of bodiness? Well, that was a good question. And I didn't know the answer to, really, but my suggestion was wait and see. You know, a movie's not made by its rating. And, in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Mola Ram still pulled a dude's beating heart out of his chest, and we got that PG-13 rating. But, lo and behold, there was an article in the Hollywood Reporter today, or actually it was yesterday, that dealt with this very thing. And I was like, how interesting. Why don't I follow up? I want to know. Well, let's do that, shall we? Because why not? Let's talk about this article. This article is in the Hollywood Reporter, and Ryan Parker wrote it. And the article title is, let me get to it right here and put it up. The article title is Coming to America 2. Coming to America director defends Eddie Murphy's sequel's PG-13 rating. So I thought this was all very interesting because it all kind of feeds into the overall topics we'll be discussing on the show today. Craig Brewer stressed that the country has changed a great deal since the 1988 original film, and that needed to be kept in mind when making the new movie. Coming to America fans who've been longing for a sequel to the Eddie Murphy Arsenio Hall classic may have been surprised to learn that the comedy 33 years in the making would be rated PG-13. The original was rated R. However, director Craig Brewer told the Wall Street Journal in an interview published Wednesday that Amazon Prime's video Coming to America will have just as much bite as the original, just not the nudity and peppered F-bombs. I mean, that's interesting. Nudity and peppered F-bombs. I never really thought of nudity and peppered F-bombs as the reason the movie got an R rating, but okay. If an R-rated movie would work, then we do an R-rated movie, Brewer told the Wall Street Journal. I think we still have a really hilarious movie, and we do push the boundaries on a PG-13 movie here and there. If you look at the first movie, other than the gratuitous nudity of the bathers and some swearing, it's actually rather wholesome. It's got a fairy tale feel to it. That's actually how I've always felt about Coming to America, actually. Murphy and Hall, along with much of the original cast, returned for Coming to America. And Brewer said he knew expectations would be high amongst fans, as the film is a beloved Eddie Murphy classic, the likes of Beverly Hills Cop, 48 Hours, and Trading Places. I know what it's like to have people go, can't wait to see it, and then threaten me and say, you better not mess it up because that movie means a lot to me, the director said. My job on set was to be the guardian of what from the original movie can be celebrated and then what's going overboard, because we did want this movie to be its own thing. Brewer also stressed that the country has changed a great deal since the 1988 original film, and that needed to be kept in mind when making the sequel. We didn't want to ignore the fact that Prince Akeem in the first movie left the wife he was betrothed to through his king-hopping and barking like a dog. I can guarantee you that would not make it through the third draft of a script that would come through the Hollywood system today, he said. There always was this line we had to judge with how far we'd go with the comedy. He added, we found as we started testing it with fans of the original, we were testing it when there were Black Lives Matter protests happening in the street, and the conscience of the country was beginning to shift. And so we asked, how can we still be relevant to this movie to be funny, but at the same time be sensitive to racial and gender issues? So there you have it. I have to say that I don't disagree with Mr. Brewer's assessment of what's going on. I mean, we are living through a period of time. I've always thought of it this way. You when you're making a movie, you are making it for the mass audience, and you do, in fact, need to take that into consideration. However, I do find that, listen, I've often talked on this show about people deserving a voice. And one of the great things about having a more different kinds of people, whether religious people, whether it's LGBTQ people, traditionally, minority voices that we haven't heard, I'm a big fan of having more voices, more people be given the megaphone or the film camera or whatever it is they want to use to spread their message. I'm a big proponent of this. Why? Because I think that we as a people, as the human race, will always be benefited by hearing the stories or the experiences or understanding the experiences of our fellow travelers on this merry ball of earth that we travel around the sun on. The more people that have voices and their voices are heard, well, then I think the better off we all are, because we can understand the experiences of those around us that aren't necessarily the same as we are, which is why I'm such a big proponent of these things. I guess my own worry is that we're starting to become very binary about how we listen to people and make these decisions. I talked yesterday, I played a clip from Apocalypse Now where Dennis Hopper was talking about dialectic physics, or the dialectic way of being, I suppose. You either love somebody or you hate them. And I think that's never a good thing when it comes to culture and society. I prefer a more nuanced approach. And I guess, when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s as a kid and watching films and being heavily influenced by them, I did feel that movies, especially in the 70s, had a far more nuanced view of life. Things coexisted together. Like you'd see a movie, one of my favorite movies to this day, it's a great satire, but it's also just a great movie, is Network, based on Patty Chayefsky's great script. It's a skewering of the television industry as it existed in the mid-70s. And Beatrice Straight, of course, won her Oscar for a 5-minute turn in the film, where she's incredible, an incredible cast. But another movie that we're going to do on Whining About Movies if we ever get to it, All That Jazz, it dealt with sort of, I feel like, the gamut of human experience. I feel like movies back then were more mature, I think would be the word, and they were much more nuanced, and they dealt with lots of things. They went into areas that were uncomfortable and didn't hesitate to do so. And I feel that these days, people are a little bit they're either switched on or switched off. And there's so much more middle ground, and there's so much more nuance to our lives here on this planet that I feel are being now sort of left behind in our discussions of culture. And I find it a little bit distressing because, again, I see it sort of as the infantilization of all of us. And I like, as a kid, I really wanted to be a part of the adult world because the adult world was so interesting and so dynamic to me. And I feel that maybe it's a little less interesting and a little less dynamic because the philosophical discussions or the interesting ways of looking at certain subject matter that film from the past would engage in was something I grew up with and something that really shaped me. And I feel that we are really sort of, in a way, dumbing down our culture as we try in our efforts to appease people. And the way, yes, the country has changed, and I think Craig Brewer is correct. You know, if you don't need to put in nudity and, I don't know, however, maybe it was nudity, maybe it was language or whatever, but I just feel that we're all being a little coddled. Like we're being very hypocritical about where we are at as people, and it's strange. I don't know why this has been happening. I'm sure there's a number of reasons, but that doesn't change the fact that I think Coming to America looks funny. I like seeing the fact that the cast has all come back, and I really like what Eddie Murphy and Craig Brewer did with Dolomite Is My Name. I thought it was a lot of fun, and certainly that was a very R-rated movie. I had no problem with that, and I can understand. You know, everybody gets a little older and a little wiser, and maybe they want to tone it down, and they're not going to listen to their punk rock records as much as they did when they were younger. I completely understand all of that, so I certainly do not begrudge. I do not begrudge them wanting to do a film that was a little, call it tamer. Yeah. And I think, again, the proof's in the pudding. I can't wait to see Coming to America 2. I really look forward to watching it on Friday. Big day Friday. You got WandaVision coming out. You got Raya and the Last Dragon. And whenever I hear that, I keep thinking it's a sequel to Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon, and that we're going to see Shonuff the Shogun show up in that movie because it is obviously Asian-themed, although I don't think we are going to see Shonuff the Shogun. But Raya and the Last Dragon, if it was an actual sequel to The Last Dragon from the 80s, I would be there for it. But that's kind of what I was hoping for, even though that's what I'll dream of Thursday night. I wonder if it's a sequel. It really is a sequel. In my mind, it's a sequel to The Last Dragon. And we got WandaVision coming up. And no, I will spare you any WandaVision speculation. Between the videos I've done for John Campia's channel, boy, have I talked about WandaVision a lot. Today, even. So, that's only a couple days away. Now, I wanted to also, first of all, there's a few things I wanted to approach this a few different ways. I keep thinking about the Dr. Seuss situation, and again, my own feelings and thoughts on it are, I don't know, I guess are complex. I mean, my first thought about Dr. Seuss and his books are it's never great to necessarily, it's never great to ban anything because things change. And I think that really when it comes right down to it, for a man born in, I think it was 1904, you know, there's certain things you can expect from somebody who grew up in the early part of the 20th century, which the way they were supposed to be. It's interesting. Torrin Atkinson asked me if I should ask Willow Yang about the depictions of Chinese in Dr. Seuss's work. And Willow was kind enough, she sent in a tip even today. She said, Torrin's comment yesterday, was he referring to the Dr. Seuss drawing of a Chinaman who eats with sticks? If so, I do think it's an outdated caricature and probably should be contextualized, but I'm not offended by something made 80 years ago. See, to me, that's kind of that's why I love Willow Yang. That's kind of the response that I had to all these things, that it's strange to me that we want to take things that happen historically and get rid of them. I certainly wouldn't want to get rid of the concentration camps that you can visit in Europe because they're constant reminders of where we came from and what happened, and I don't think they should ever be done away with. I don't think history should be removed for any reason. I think, as Willa said, it should be contextualized, and we should learn from it. I've always felt that way. But that said, there's been a couple of really interesting takes on this subject, and I wanted to address it. The first was Mike Bodden made me aware of Terry Beattie. Terry Beattie he was co-creator of Mrs. Tree. Mrs. Tree was a comic I read. It's a mystery series, noir mystery series, with the titular character, and Terry Beattie drew that series with Max Allan Collins. And I wanted to read what Terry said today on his Facebook page. He said, sneaking in here before midnight tolls to wish the late, great Ted Gessel, a.k.a. Dr. Seuss, a happy birthday wherever he may be. He's certainly in the news and all over Facebook as people freak out about him being canceled, which isn't what happened. What has happened is that Dr. Seuss Enterprises is pulling half dozen of his over 60 titles from distribution over imagery and language that they have deemed offensive. And I have to say, I agree with them. The images of Asians and Africans in the books in question may not have been intended as hurtful when published, but they clearly are now. Pulling those books is, frankly, overdue. Cartoonists of Gessel's generation learned to draw people of other cultures as stereotypes. That is very true. How to cartoon books and correspondence courses of the day contained instructions on how to draw various ethnicities in a manner that is not at all acceptable for today's audiences. The Asian and African caricatures in the 6 books involved here are not something we should be putting in front of today's kids. If you don't believe me, do a Google search and look them up. You might be surprised by what you don't remember from those books. So, does that make Dr. Seuss a racist? No. It makes him born in 1904 and a product of his time. As he became older and more thoughtful, he dropped those stereotypes from his work, even updating one of them, even though sadly not enough, but hey, he tried. And let's remember, this is the author of The Sneetches we're talking about here. Certainly, adults can view these works through informed eyes and understand the bigger picture. But kids are going to see outdated imagery that will be hurtful to those of the ethnicities portrayed. Should Seuss's works be preserved and his history and legacy kept alive? Sure. There are literally millions of his books out there on bookshelves and in collections. The original versions of these 6 will still exist after ceasing publication and will always be available to adults who want to study them. They're not being erased from existence. If you really want to read them, you'll be able to find them, just as you can still find Song of the South and the Looney Tunes Inky cartoons if you know where to look. They're just not going to be put in front of kids anymore, and I'm okay with that. Remember, this is a decision made by Seuss Enterprises after years of careful consideration. They've not done this on a whim, and they are being protective of Seuss's reputation and memory. No one is taking away Cat in the Hat, and the Lorax is just fine. Thank you. I thought that was a great measured response from Terry Beatty. It's Beatty, actually, and I thought I wanted to share it. Now, there's a few more I wanted to share, too. And this first one is an interesting article about exactly where Dr. Seuss was. He has a problematic past in terms of drawing racist cartoons and other questionable things. He also was a propagandist during World War II on the side of America. So what I wanted to do was sort of get in and look at this because I thought it was interesting. I looked this up. This article is by Jim Edwards, and it was published March 23rd, 2012 in Business Insider. Again, this is a 9-year-old article, but I wanted to share it with you to show it. Before Dr. Seuss was famous, he drew these sad, racist ads. There's old Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss's political leanings are well known. He was a liberal Democrat who opposed fascism in the 1940s and President Nixon in the 1970s. The new movie of his book, The Lorax, is fairly unsubtle pro-environment allegory. Less well celebrated are the Theodore Seuss Gessel's early advertising and political cartoons, or I think it's Jessel. Theodore Seuss Gessel's early advertising and political cartoons from the 1920s through the 1940s, which feature a decidedly racist streak. In the ads from the collection of the Library of the University of California, San Diego, black people are presented as savages living in the tropics dressed in grass skirts. Arabs are portrayed as camel-riding nomads or sultans. In his political cartoons, from the collection of Springfield Library and Museums Association, Seuss inveighed against the Japanese during World War II. He drew them buck-toothed and squint-eyed. To be fair, many people did, including even Disney, who made propaganda cartoons. Walt Disney and the Disney Studios made propaganda cartoons because they were our enemies during World War II. The images are depressing because they reveal that one of America's most original artist authors had the same tired views of non-whites that his contemporaries did. During the war, Seuss defended his anti-Japanese view, according to his biographer, Richard H. Meyer. Right now, when the Japs are planting their hatchets in our skulls, it seems like a hell of a time for us to smile and warble, brothers. It is a rather flabby battle cry. If we want to win, we've got to kill Japs, whether it depresses John Haynes Holmes or not. We can get palsy-walsy afterwards with those that are left. Now, I worked on, I didn't work on them, but we were looking at Disney propaganda cartoons and how we were going to package Disney cartoons of the 40s, also Warner Brothers. There were a lot of people and a lot of artists and a lot of cartoonists and a lot of animators that were making very problematic work if we looked at it today. But we were at war. And I think when you are at war, you're dehumanizing your enemy in the eyes of your civilian population, and he was definitely one of these. Later in his career, Seuss mended his ways and drew anti-racist cartoons, a couple of which we've also included in this gallery. He also expressed regret for his anti-Japanese views, according to filmmaker Ron Lamothe, who made the political Dr. Seuss. The only evidence I have comes from his biographers, who told me that years later, although still recognizing its necessity due to the war, he was regretful about some of his cartoons for PM and some of the propaganda work he did for the Army Signal Corps. I do think the fact that it's important, he was working directly for the U.S. Army. I do think the fact that he dedicated Horton Hears a Who, a parable about the American post-war occupation of Japan, to my great friend Mitsugi Nakamura of Kyoto, Japan, says something of his changing attitudes toward the Japanese, this following a trip he made there in 1953. Though, as Richard Meyer has pointed out, Horton Hears a Who still smacks of American chauvinism, and it makes no reference to Hiroshima or Nagasaki. Now here are, he drew ads for an insect repellent called Flit insect repellent. And it says here, you have a white guy coming onto an island where he sees a native. My name's Caruso Robinson J. May I have the honor of joining you? Not unless you swim back after some Flit, mister. The flies on this island are fearful. And again, these are Flit advertisements for an insect repellent. Here is another thing that he did that I'm sure people can see why it is problematic. Again, you have natives, obviously black Africans, boiling a white human being in their pot, who emerges to kill a mosquito with Flit. And certainly these would not fly today. And again, here's another one of these Flit ads. And again, the African imagery is very strong and pretty obvious. And then here's another one. He had a lot of sultans in his ads as well. Oh, Allah, send a generous shower of rain to quench our sun-baked thirst. Traveler, yeah, and how about a shower of Flit to quench these damn mosquitoes? So, yes, he definitely was using these kinds of caricatures. But as Terry Beattie did point out in his work, or in his essay, that again, when people were in art school and things like that, caricature drawing, these things were taught and followed. And that's not excusing someone of what they've done, but I think it's important to realize, again, contextually, historical context is important. And it's not like at the time anyone thought that, oh, these were going to be offensive. And so people are definitely product of their times. I saw this, there was somebody getting very upset about this political cartoon that he had done. And the insinuation was that Dr. Seuss was somehow perhaps pro-Nazi. While on the right, you see a Nazi, probably a Nazi, either Nazi party member, Nazi sympathizer. And on the left, you saw America First. And the text reads, "And on this platform, folks, those most perplexing people, the lads with the Siamese beard, unrelated by blood, they are joined in a matter that mystifies the mightiest minds in the land." Well, America First was a group that opposed American involvement in World War II, and Dr. Seuss was a proponent of America getting into the war, and he saw the America First group as capitulating and being Nazi sympathizers, and that's where this comic comes from. I saw it mistakenly identified as Dr. Seuss being pro-Nazi in some way, shape, or form, and I'm like, no, there's a context here that you really have to understand in order for, and I think that, again, if he's going to be marked as a racist or a Nazi sympathizer, at least make those things correct in what he's doing. So again, oops, I didn't mean to do that. I apologize. I sent it away. But again, I think we need nuanced discussion, and we need to, like, I'm always thinking, even when I do a show, should I rethink my position? And when Mike Bodden sent me that Terry Beatty essay, I was like, okay, I am adamantly opposed to censorship. I also think that this idea that children should be protected from ideas is inherently wrong. Now, I'm not saying that kids, I believe in preserving childhood innocence as well. But when you come across things that are problematic, rather than hide them from kids, I do believe that we should take these things head on and bring kids into the conversation. Kids aren't dumb. Let children be a part of the learning process, so they in fact do get to learn. And I think this idea that we're gonna protect these kids from bad thoughts. I mean, they live in the world. They're going to be exposed to bad thoughts. And I think the sooner that we can make kids understand these things, the better off we are. But I do think that the world we live in now, I think the children that are born today and exist today, I think are growing up in a pluralistic, multicultural society. And that is, in fact, a part of their lives. And I think, now is probably, there's never been a time like today to bring kids into the conversation early on. Now, this was also sort of interesting that I wanted to share this article. The Dr. Seuss cancel culture backlash is a distraction. Here's the real issue. Mary McNamara wrote this. It was in the LA Times yesterday. She is a culture columnist and critic. Here's what she has to say. On Tuesday, cancel culture was officially promoted to outlaw culture, which definitely would sound way cooler if it weren't so maddeningly ridiculous and offensively dangerous. The upgrade came courtesy of California's own Representative Kevin McCarthy, Republican Bakersfield, arguing against a Democratic measure to expand voting rights. The House Minority Leader was in the midst of accusing Democrats of wanting to strip states and counties of their ability to control elections when he added, apropos of absolutely nothing, first they outlawed Dr. Seuss and then they want to tell us what to say. What Dr. Seuss has to do with voting rights is nothing at all. Like so many conservatives these days, McCarthy was just randomly shoving the notion of cancel culture into the mix to get his compatriots all riled up. McCarthy could have been referring to President Biden's failure to name-check Dr. Seuss in his Read Across America Day proclamation. Coinciding with the author's birthday, Read Across America Day was for many years a joint enterprise with the National Education Association and Seuss Enterprises, but that partnership ended in 2008. And a year later, the Seuss brand was dimmed somewhat by a 2019 study that found the humans in his books to be overwhelmingly white, those who were not often depicted in a racially disparaging manner. Likewise, McCarthy might have been referencing false reports that public schools in Virginia's Loudoun County had banned the books of Dr. Seuss, which they had not. Most probably the reason McCarthy decided to throw this first they came for the cat in the hat bomb into his argument regarding voting rights was the announcement Tuesday by Dr. Seuss Enterprises that it would be no longer publishing 6 of the author's less popular books because they contain offensive racial depictions. It is possible that McCarthy genuinely cannot imagine a world without brand new editions of And to Think I Saw It on Mulberry Street or If I Ran the Zoo, but there is no denying that the illustrations in those books of a Chinese man and 2 African-American men, respectively, are horrendously racist. There's also no denying that none of the recent Seuss-related developments could in any way be considered outlawing Dr. Seuss. Honestly, it is a tiny bit worrisome when an actual lawmaker so obviously does not understand the definition of the word law. Dr. Seuss Enterprises is legally entitled to do whatever it wants with the books it controls, just as the NEA is largely allowed to list whatever books it chooses for Read Across America Day. Read them or don't read them, if no one is going to get arrested for clinging to a copy of If I Ran the Zoo. In terms of literary promotion, I don't think anyone in the world needs to be reminded on a yearly basis that The Cat in the Hat and Green Eggs and Ham are childhood classics, which, for the record, no one is denying. McCarthy was not the only conservative. Well, listen, I will let you guys read the rest of this article, but I just wanted to bring this up because I think, I have one more thing that I want to read, and it's a letter from a viewer, and I think you're gonna dig this. Oops, sorry, I don't mean to show you the machinations of how I pull up all of your letters, but I thought this was actually a really interesting letter, and I wanted to share it with you because it all kind of feeds into the same thing. This letter comes from Evan Newman, and I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's a private message to me. But basically, the gist of what Evan was wondering about was that I have sort of on the show steered away or steered towards more, as he put it in the letter, outrage topics. And when I was talking about modern Star Trek or cancel culture, Dr. Seuss books or Gina Carano and white math and those kinds of things. And he was wondering why that was. And I think Evan brings up a pretty good point. First and foremost, I would say part of the reason that I've tried to bring in more or less entertainment-related topics is simply because there's not very much entertainment news, because for the last year, we haven't had new movies coming out. When we do, I've tried to cover them. And there's just not that much going on as far as entertainment news goes, or stories that I'm interested in talking about. And so I've tried to stress, or I've tried to talk about things that I'm interested in. And I do think, I guess, as a lifelong, my whole life, I've seen various things. In the 80s, Tipper Gore, Al Gore's wife, started the PMRC, the Parents Music Resource Center, and was going after music. And it was a big thing in the 80s. As a matter of fact, one of my favorite horror novels by John Skip and Craig Spector. I wonder if I can reach it. I don't think I can reach it from here. It's over there. One of my favorite horror novels, and it's, if you guys like horror, and that means like horror. Somebody say horror novels? No, horror. Horror novels. One of my favorites that I have ever read, it was a splatterpunk novel par excellence, is a book called The Scream by John Skip and Craig Spector, and it was music censorship played heavily into the novel, and then of course there really was a heavy metal band that was from hell. But it's a great book, and if you want to read something that's fast, loud, bloody, and fun, there are fewer 80s splatterpunk horror novels that deliver the goods more than The Scream does. Nothing to do with the movie. But it dealt with a lot of an undercurrent of the book was music censorship. And I've dealt with that literally my whole life. Should you watch these things? Should kids have access to them? Are these things offensive? And it's always sort of, I've never looked at things that way. As I grew up, I obviously knew things change, culture changes, and we can't escape our past. America's racial past isn't a good one. We weren't very nice people, we Americans, between the genocide of the people that lived in North America before we got here, what we did to them, to the indigenous population, is horrific. And it's not something, look, I would say this too, it was inevitable. It's been inevitable. The human history has proven time after time after time that thereafter any superior or technologically superior or numerically superior force will eventually win out over the bucolic, say, indigenous people if they don't have the weapons and the wherewithal to fight back. It's not something that I'm proud of, but I think that ultimately we can't escape our history, and part of the thing that I've always believed in is that we need to contextualize these things and understand what they were all about. Like, I don't understand. I've never understood really true racism because I grew up in a household where my parents were very accepting of people, and I never heard my parents really, I don't think they disparaged anybody. The only time I ever heard anybody disparage anybody was my mother was usually very critical of people's golf games, but she was critical of their game, not them themselves, not them personally. But so I didn't grow up in a household where there was a lot of disparagement of others happening, and I guess that led to my I don't know. I like people, and I think I like people because my dad certainly liked people too, and I got that definitely from him. And what I find so interesting in the day we live in, and these days we live in, and maybe the reason I've been talking about these things is I find this it's the glee with which people are going after others that scares me. And because I've talked about on the show, like that my greatest fear is the collapse of civility. That's my little issue. That's what scares me. That's why when I saw Dawn of the Dead, the Romero zombie films always got to me, not necessarily because I was scared of zombies. What I found scary was the fall of civilization. I never wanted to be a part of that because I like civilization. I like what we've built up. Yes, of course. I mean, human history is one bloody outrage after another. And being adopted into a Jewish family, I got to hear all about it when I was growing up, and it was fairly shocking to me. But what was the most shocking, and I think that's what stuck with me the most, was how quickly civility for certain people was removed in a very progressive, what you thought was a modern society, and how quickly it happened, how quickly it degenerated. And I've seen it happen. I saw it last year happen even to me, that how quickly people can turn on you, and when they desire to come after you, regardless of what the consequences are to your own life, there's no consequences to people that go after others. And when they do it gleefully, they can cause a lot of damage, and they don't have to. There's no repercussions. They don't have to pay for what they've done to others. That kind of thing scares me. So maybe that's why I have this subject matter that I have been discussing. But I find it interesting because it's part of culture, and I try and keep it entertainment related as much as I can. But I do think that it's important, and I think, again, the free flow of ideas is important. I do find it interesting, however, that I think it's pretty obvious to me that I want to look at all sides of an issue and have a conversation about it. And there are people that aren't there for that, and I can understand that. The letter here, so when someone tells me they don't want me to read their letter, I won't read their letter. But I think that Evan Newman's letter was a quite good letter, and there were many salient points in it. And I would love to have shared it with the group. He told me not to, so I respect his wishes. But I more than anything, I appreciate the fact that I have listeners and viewers and watchers. Remember, you can get the show as a podcast if you want it. Like Evan, who took the time. This is a fairly long letter with really great points to make, and there's even embedded links to certain videos and things like that, and I actually articles. And I just want to say to Evan, personal and confidential, I can't thank you enough for writing this letter to me, and again, keeping that dialogue going. I really appreciate it when people write in, even when they disagree with me or seeing me say things that aren't the norm for them, and so thank you for that. And if there's other people that aren't digging, what I'm trying to do is start a conversation about all of these things, and while they might be more political than normal, at least they're referring back to entertainment, books, music, movies, whatever. And I've often expressed the idea that one day if somebody got a hold of my Amazon purchase list, perhaps, somebody wouldn't like it. And you never know. So it's just a thing that I've been thinking about. This letter comes from Grant Bixenman. Grant Bixenman. Hello, Rob. Thank you for answering my last letter. I saw your show on Tuesday and your talk about the people who work in home video. Now, I did not know that there were dedicated divisions who work on home video. I had always thought, especially when it came to older titles, that it was up to the archivists at the studios who went through the catalog to find things for physical media or streaming. I completely agree the studios need to keep these people working, because if the decision of what to release on home video or what to add to a streaming service is left up to people who only care about new titles, I fear whether it is putting a show like Gunsmoke on Paramount Plus or putting the original Mickey Mouse Club on Disney Plus, titles like this would just be left to rot in vaults. This cannot be allowed to happen, and thanks for sharing stories like this. Classic movies and television need to be protected. A great letter, Grant. I want to thank you for writing in. Listen, I think that I was having a conversation right before I went on today, which is why I was a little late. Sorry about that. About this very thing. I am a huge fan of Warner Archive. Warner Archive has been putting out great. They just announced Quick Change, the Bill Murray movie Quick Change, that the crying on the inside kind of clown movie. I really like Quick Change. It's finally coming out. Warner Archive's putting it out in another couple weeks. They're putting out my beloved The Bermuda Depths on Blu-ray. They've already put out things like the original Don't Be Afraid of the Dark and Bad Ronald and The Hunger. And Warner Archive's done some great stuff. I mean, they're putting out Driving Miss Daisy. But Warner Archive was sort of more of the boutique label at Warner Brothers, and they did a lot of great work. It's gone. They pretty much gotten rid of everyone at Warner Archive, and including George Feltenstein, who knows more about MGM and Warner Brothers catalogs than probably anybody alive today. And you would think, well, you would, but the entire cinema legacy of the United States, is really pretty much. I mean, it's been 100 years, almost in 27. We had sound 27, 28. So we're not even 100 years into the sound era of movies. And so many of those films have been lost from the early days. And I know that there's just not a lot of call for that stuff with modern audiences, but I still think it should be preserved and, put on streaming services. So it bums me out when all of those people are being sent away, and I understand they're expensive. If you have veteran legacy employees that have been there for a while, they've been getting raise after raise after raise. They might know a great deal, but they're also very expensive as far as companies go, and so they're easy pickings when it comes to downsizing. But what I would say is, you're cutting your own throat if you're getting rid of people that know your catalog, and you're not replacing them with people that do, because you're going to be losing out, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. So we shall see. Let's see. Wow, this is pretty cool. This is pretty neat. I'll never mind. The next letter that I'm going to read, I was reading something else. Jason Webster writes in and says, I hope yourself and the fantastic members of the Post-Geek Singularity are having a terrific week. I would like to take this opportunity to review my favorite historical drama of all time, known as Empress Kai, from 2013. The series is a Saguk historical K-drama that became a ratings phenomenon throughout Asia and a beloved series globally. My second all-time favorite is the miniseries Shogun. I love Shogun. It's one of my favorite things I've ever seen on TV. Based on James Clavell's popular novel. That series starred Richard Chamberlain, Toshiro Mifune, Yoko Shimada, and John Rhys-Davies, but I've digressed slightly. Empress Ki tells the story of Yang Ki of Goroyo. As a child, she was being transported as a tribute to Wan along with her mother when they're set free by the young Prince of Goryeo. However, Yang's mother is killed while Yang escaped and adopted the guise of a young boy named Sung Yang. She becomes a master of martial arts and uses the short bow before joining the military, where she forges a formidable reputation as a fearsome warrior and cunning tactician. Sung Yang abandons the male persona and resumes her true identity as Yang Qi and enters the Yuan imperial court as a concubine of Prince and is destined to change the course of the Yuan dynasty. Empress Qi was filmed at the famous MBC Yongin, I can't even pronounce these names, and I've been to Korea, Daejeonggum Park, where numerous acclaimed Saguk dramas were filmed, including Jamong, Queen Sedong-duk, Dong Yi, Shine or Go Crazy, and The Crowded Clown. The series was filmed under the title Hwatu, Battle of Flowers. One of the greatest historical period dramas of the last 40 years, Empress Qi is a stunning achievement thanks to sublime talent in front of and behind the camera. The series is a sumptuous feast for the senses, featuring richly vivid cinematography, beautiful production design, gorgeous costumes, and an eloquent score by Kim Jang-woo that perfectly complemented every scene. I guarantee that, as a viewer, one will become really immersed and invested in the characters and the story. And he goes on and explains who the cast is. And then she talks about, however, the gorgeous and sublimely talented Ha Jan-woo gives a commanding performance in the lead role with an extraordinary range as she effortlessly traverses between varying complex emotions required for each and every scene, whether it is deep sadness, searing anger, intense longing, sheer elation, or burning passion. She conveys it perfectly, allowing for true engagement between her and the audience. Fans of Asian cinema and television will know of the amazing Ha Ji-won through good performances in such films as Duelist, Sector 7, and Pawn, as well as television series such as Hwang Genie, Secret Garden, The King Two Hearts, Hospital Ship, and Chocolate. Empress Qi began its broadcast run on MBC in South Korea on the 28th of October in 2013 and ran 51 episodes. Wow, with the finale airing on the April 29th, 2014. Testament to the show's level of excellence, the series dominated its time slot in its original broadcast run on MBC in South Korea, reaching a ratings high of 28.3 nationwide and 33% in Seoul. The series consistently increased its ratings percentage over the entire run of the show. Empress Qi is truly beautiful, emotional, compelling, and memorable, and is both required viewing and an absolute must-have in anyone's DVD and Blu-ray collection. I'll get that. The series is my all-time favorite, and every other television series comprehensively fails in comparison. I highly recommend anybody viewing this wonderful series. You can watch Empress Qi now on Netflix. Wow. And copies of the series are available for purchase through Amazon.com. The series is a must-have for anyone's Blu-ray and DVD collection. I hope yourself and the members that comprise the PGS enjoy the remainder of the week and have scheduled a great weekend full of fun and wonder. Well, Jason, I'll tell you right now, that sounds right up my alley. Let's go to Amazon and see if is available. There it is. Wow, there's a soundtrack. Where's the Blu-ray? Come on, man. I need a Blu-ray. All I'm looking at is the subtitled DVD. Well, there you go. Ooh. Wow. You know what? Bruh. Empress Qi Deluxe set. Look at this. I'll put this in the live chat. This looks right up my alley, but it's DVD. I can't rock a DVD. I got to buy some Blu-rays, but here it is. Here's what we were talking about right there. It's 90. Ooh, it's pricey, bruh. Pricey. But what a great box set that is. I'll watch that. I was unaware of that show, but if you like Shogun and you like this, anyone who loves Shogun, if you guys haven't seen Shogun, come on, man. That is, you gotta, come on. It's one of the greatest things that's ever been on TV. This one comes from Jermaine K. Jermaine K writes in and says, "Hello, Rob. Thanks for reading my previous letters. This one is about the recent controversy around some Dr. Seuss books, but first I'd like to ask about two factions from Star Trek. How do you feel about the Dominion? I'm watching DS9 on BBC America, and I'm loving it. The Dominion, especially the founders, are a very interesting protagonist. Their relationship to Odo is one of the best story threads in the show, in my opinion. Keeping with Deep Space Nine, how do you feel about the Klingon story that carried over from TNG? General Martok is a favorite of mine, and Worf's struggle to understand the motivations of the Empire is good too. Would love to hear your views. As for Dr. Seuss, the whole situation is very troubling to me. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theory person, but I know people who are. Rob, they'd spend hours talking to you about cultural Marxism and a plot to destroy America's culture by destroying our history. My view is different. I think self-righteousness and hubris have run amok. It takes a special level of self-importance to think anyone has the right to judge the past by modern standards. I completely agree with you there. Why we are judging the past by modern standards, I will never understand. Also, where does it end? I don't know. How soon until every sitcom produced before 2015 is deemed inappropriate? I think that's kind of coming. That's what scares me. Are any of Norman Lear's legendary shows worthy of being watched in 2021, or are they all too offensive now? How about a movie like 16 Candles, or a show like Married with Children? This is a dangerous moment we're in, and I hope it ends really soon. Thanks, and take care. Well, Jermaine, not a long letter, but very important things, going from our culture wars to Deep Space Nine, and I'm here for it, let me tell you, sir. The way I look at it is this. I feel that there's a maturity level in our discourse in this country that somehow has eluded us. And I'm looking at the past with rose-colored glasses, but it just seems that we're no longer that smart. And coupled with the fact that people want to be outraged about things, and are whether it's our partisan politics and how divided we are as a nation, or everybody wants to pounce on everything that is even remotely offensive in one way, shape, or form. I guess because I just know that life itself is offensive. There are offensive things all over the place, and I've never understood this idea that, we should be comfortable all the time. Like, I don't want to grapple with any ideas that are uncomfortable. I've always felt just the opposite. If there's something's uncomfortable, that's when I want to confront it, or that's when I want to learn about it and get into it and talk about it. So I don't know where this is all coming from. I don't understand. And I have yet to meet people that are calling for the cancellation of our culture that I respect in any way, shape, or form, really. I prefer much more nuanced approaches to things, which is why I wanted to read those takes to you today. But back to your look, I love the Dominion as an antagonist. I think the idea that shapeshifters that have always been victimized by the solids, now they're the dominant force in the gamma quadrant. Gamma, delta, beta. The gamma quadrant is fascinating. And that they have basically created the Vorta. They created the Vorta, and they breed their soldiers. They're solid representatives and ambassadors, and they're solid warriors while they hang back. I think they're very interesting antagonists, and I really love them. And I really liked how the Klingon story was taken over. I mean, sure, Deep Space Nine was a show that you could argue was trying to reinvent its premise every year. But I thought once they settled in, season 4, 5, 6, and 7 are pretty great all the way through. There's of course a misstep here and there, but first of all, I love Martok. I love the fact that they carried Gowron over. It's unfortunate that he kind of went out kind of like a chump, but I did like Gowron. But Martok's one of my favorite Klingons, right up there with Kor and Kang and even Worf. I loved everything they did on the show. So it's a hugely satisfying show to watch, and I really liked all of that. And I thought the show, look, the 6th season of Deep Space Nine is my favorite entire season of modern Star Trek since the original series. I think it's so strong. And, starting from Apocalypse Rising, which is the first episode of the 5th season, I think you're really off to the races. And great stuff. But thanks for writing in. I very much appreciate it. David Kukol writes in and says, "Hi, Rob. I just bought my virtual ticket and have begun watching Tango Shalom. I will write again with my thoughts if you wish." Absolutely. One question before I turn my full attention back to the film. Is that your voice at the beginning of the movie crying out, "Behold the Promised Land"? Gotta go. Regards, David. Yes, it is. That is, in fact, my voice. I'm the voice of Moses, I should say. The movie opens with the dream sequence, spoiler alert, and that is my voice. And why did I do that? Well, when we were making the movie, that scene that was shot, by the way, at the very famous Vasquez Rocks, they didn't shoot sound. So, the dream sequence, we had a lot of, that went through very many permutations as we were making the movie. And I think it works. I wanted to digitally add like hundreds of more people into it, but I figured, you know what, at the end of the day, it's a dream, so you go with it. But it had no sound. So it was all shot. There was no sound recorded. And I said, when he says, behold the promised land, we have to have somebody say that. So I did a scratch track. When a lot of the time when you make movies, you're constantly adding dialogue or saying things or changing the ADR around, and you leave it in the film, and then you go back and you're like, okay, we're gonna take this out. And when we were doing the final sound mix, I'm like, well, we should get. At first, we wanted to get someone like Mel Brooks to do this. We were gonna ask Mel Brooks because he knew Joe Bologna, but we never really did. And Gabe's like, the director's like, no, I like your voice. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, it's a dream sequence. You have presence. And I go, well, wouldn't he be saying something in Hebrew? And Gabe's like, no, he lives. It's fine. So I re-recorded my voice in a sound booth, and yes, that is me speaking at the beginning of Tango Shalom. Thank you for noticing, very much. Let's see. This one comes from Duncan Kinnaird. Hello, Duncan. Hi, Rob. 'Tis I, Dunk. It seems you're never without a nugget of news or an article you've read that gives you content to discuss in your shows. Well, I just make it look that way, but I struggle sometimes. However, it never hurts to have something else up your sleeve. Several months ago, after watching one of your shows, YouTube made a recommendation which took me down a rabbit hole of Harlan Ellison. Mostly interviews. Ooh, I love that. Quite a colorful character, to say the least. Now, I'm embarrassed to say Harlan was such a pivotal imagination connoisseur whose name I was unaware of, even though I had been obviously exposed to his work. I wonder how many people in your community know his name. Hands up in the chat. Now, you, Rob, have an amazing encyclopedic recall on all things sci-fi geekdom. I think it would be fantastic to see you doing shows every now and then, choosing an individual like Harlan and give us a history lesson of their interweaving roles in making all the things we love, but might not know very much about them. I bet you'd be surprised just how many of these absolute pillars of sci-fi or whatever that you can name with ease and leap into a robolog extolling the amazing stories of their life. You wrote robolog, or instead of a monologue, leap into a robolog. Oh no. A robolog extolling the amazing stories of their life and influences that many people have little knowledge about. I'm sure there'd be plenty of people in the community to give you suggestions. Just a rambling thought from me. Chin chid, you old bugger. Love, Dunk. Well, a robolog. Oh boy. That's actually a really good idea. The problem is that for me, it would require, to do it correctly, I'd have to write things down and do research, which, as Mike Bodden will tell you, I kind of wing it as it goes. I look for things to talk about, but it all kind of coalesces at the end. But that's not a bad idea. Harlan Ellison, in addition to when I was a kid, he had published, that I got from the Sci-Fi Book Club, these anthologies of science fiction short stories that I think were essential. Dangerous Visions and Again Dangerous Visions. And they crowdfunded the last Dangerous Visions. I think J. Michael Straczynski was still working on that. But those were hugely important books to me. And, of course, he wrote movies and scripts and all that kind of thing. And he was a beautifully cantankerous bastard. We were talking about on the last Inglorious Trexperts podcast we recorded, actually about Babylon 5. We talked about our experience going to Madison, Wisconsin over Halloween in 2001 with Harlan to go to this convention. And he was a great guy. That's not a bad director, though. I mean, a bad director. That's not a bad idea. I like that idea. I'd have to think about that though, and I have to think about that. Who would be? I don't know who would be proper, like, what would be the most interesting person to do? Look into that. Omar94 writes one in. Hi, Rob, moderators in the Post-Geek Singularity. For a while now, there's been a big debate about whether Zack Snyder was right for the DC movies. And this got me thinking about how some filmmakers were believed to be the wrong choice to helm a project, either by the filmmakers themselves or people who work with them. Arnold Schwarzenegger felt Peter Hyams was the wrong director for End of Days, feeling he did not have the potential to visually and intellectually do something with that movie. Oh. Charles Edward Pogue, the co-writer of David Cronenberg's The Fly, felt Rob Cohen was the wrong director for Dragonheart, as he is quoted as saying Cohen had neither the poetry in his soul nor the panache to bring Dragonheart to the screen. Pogue also felt his script for the remake of DOA was ruined because he is quoted as saying the husband-wife directing duo did everything with the camera except tell a coherent story, as Michael Eisner gave high praise to Pogue's script. The Wachowskis felt Richard Donner was the wrong director for Assassins, as they felt he didn't want to make a movie as dark as they envisioned, and Donner felt their script was too dark and hired Brian Helgeland to rewrite it, which the Wachowskis thought made Assassins just another standard action movie, and they were correct. Terry Rossio said Tony Scott was the wrong director for Deja Vu, stating Scott was more interested in doing another surveillance action movie than he was with the intricacies of time travel. He also said the script he co-wrote with Bill Marsili had an airtight plot, but Scott made a film filled with many plot holes. David Fincher admitted he should not have directed The Game, saying how he was not proud of it since he could not figure out how to do the third act, and how he was fighting with executives at Polygram Entertainment who distributed the film. Paul Verhoeven said all of the movies he has done, the one movie he should not have made was Hollow Man. He stated he only made that film because he failed to get other projects he wanted to make greenlit and only made Hollow Man to stay in business. That was something I was thinking about since I keep witnessing this online debate about Zack Snyder being the right choice to helm DC movies, as there are movies where either the filmmaker or people who work with them felt the director was wrong, the wrong pick to helm a project. Thanks, and live long and prosper. Well, Omar, it's an interesting thing. I think that a director, a lot of the time, there's two ways directors end up making studio movies, and you're mostly talking about studio movies here. There's basically, imagine, there's not an actual list, maybe there is somewhere, but imagine there's only really 20 people, and I'm throwing that number out. Maybe there's 12, maybe there's 30, but let's just assume for the sake of argument, there's only 20 people alive on the planet Earth today that studios want to be directing their movies. 20. That's it. And the studios all want those same 20 people. Because one, you have to have proven yourself that you can actually make a movie with $150 or $200 million price tag, bring it in on time and on budget, and deliver great performances and everything that a director is supposed to do. So there's really only 20 people that studios can trust. But the problem is, like Paul Verhoeven says about Hollow Man, he's a director getting older. He just wants to keep working. So if he can't get any of his own passion projects, or a director can't get any of her own passion projects off the ground, and they get offered a studio gig, for the most part, they'll take it, whether they are the right director or not. I think Hollow Man is not a bad film. I don't think it's a great movie, but there's a lot of interesting stuff in it. But it's no Starship Troopers. But I still think that's what happens with a lot of directors, is that there's only a finite amount of them, and the studios want certain directors. They all want the same directors to come in and direct. And you take a job. If somebody offers you a film for $150 million, you should be hard pressed to say no. Even that's not right for me. People are going to be like, nope, they'll take the job. Or there'll be some hot up-and-coming talent that everybody's excited about, and everybody wants to work with them. And they might not have the experience. I think that we saw some of that with what was going on with Kathleen Kennedy with the Star Wars films, whether it was Lord Miller, whether it was Gareth Edwards. And I think that they get in over their heads. They weren't prepared to do a big studio movie yet. It's tough to work up to that, but it happens. And it happens for a number of reasons. But basically it happens because being a studio director is a very unique position to be in, and there just aren't that many of them. And obviously the studios, when somebody's picking, the studios want somebody that they know can get the job done, somebody that's cool, somebody they're excited to work with. There's a number of reasons, but that's why they end up getting on movies like that. People want the jobs. So, yeah. This comes from Evangelos Kanakis. Evangelos Kanakis. Or maybe it's Evangelos, but, it looks Greek to me. So, and I mean, it literally looks Greek to me. I used to say Vangelis Papathanasio. It's Vangelis. It's not Vangelis. It's Vangelis. So I'm thinking that it's either Evangelos or Evangelos Kanakis. What a cool name, though. You know what? If I was writing a screenplay, this would be a great name to put in that screenplay. Greetings to Rob and the entire Post-Geek Singularity. I have a short, I hope, story to share from my job. I work at my town's movie theater, and although my post is at the cinema's office, sometimes I help my colleagues with the customers. The most interesting stories come from the interactions with cinema customers. Back in January 2018, a Greek movie was released. The movie is called 1968, and its official synopsis reads, a look back at the epic basketball game between Greek team AEK and Slava Prague on the 4th of April 1968 in the packed Pantheonic Stadium Kalamamaro, which gave Greece its first European Cup. During that year, Greece was under a fascist regime, and AEK would play against Slavia, a team that came from a communist country. The team worried that the Greek government would make the game a political event, and they would use a political victory for AEK as a propaganda tool. Besides, the team was founded in Constantinople by Greek refugees, so its own soul goes against fascism. The film is part movie, part documentary. The director, Tassos Boumetis, came up with a few fictional stories that took place during the day of the final and showed how they were affected by the great sport event. From two lost brothers, a young couple that are going to be married if AEK wins, to a political prisoner who found common ground with his guard. The game scenes are footage from the actual game. Even the game commentary is the actual one. More than 80,000 people went to the open-roof ancient Greek stadium to watch the game, while millions more stayed home to listen to the game commentary through the radio. Now, the movie was released in January 2018. My cinema played the movie twice each day, like every new movie that's released. A group of gentlemen, older than 60 years old, appeared one night, bought their tickets, and entered the auditorium to watch the movie. You could tell from their posture, their body language, and how they talked to each other that they were friends since childhood, perhaps. They knew each other for decades. When the movie ended, I entered the auditorium to see the customers out and check that the room was ready for the next movie. I noticed that these gentlemen had red eyes. I walked next to them and asked, "Should I assume that you were moved by the movie?" One of them pulled his wallet out of his pocket and showed me his college year's ID. He said, "We were there. We were college students in Athens that year, and we were in the stadium. Thank you for playing this movie, my boy. Thank you so much." It doesn't matter if I change jobs. It doesn't matter wherever I go or whatever I do. I will always remember those gentlemen and the experience they had that night. What a great story. Evangelos, that's why I love this channel. What a great story you sent me in. The power of cinema, man. The power of cinema to move, You get immersed in things, and when you were part of that, swept up in history, and you see something that you participated in actually happen or be up there on the screen. I mean, I love that, and what a great story. And yeah, I think that I think that's lovely. Jeffrey Brown writes in and says, "Thank you for reading my email. Last time, I feel a little better. Now, I don't like heavy metal, hence another reason why Zack Snyder's Justice League doesn't appeal to me. I am more into chiptunes, punk rock from the 80s by bands like The Slits, Susie and the Banshees, and 90s rap by Busta Rhymes, the Wu-Tang Clan, Biggie Smalls, and yes, I like Amy Winehouse, Death Grips, and No Doubt. I have a question to ask you. Do you think that the Ultimate Marvel Universe was done better than the New 52 Rebirth DC Comics universe? In terms of reinventing their iconic characters, world building, creating new characters, and their influence in stuff like movies and cartoons. I want to ask you something. What do you think about my comics and art? Well, you know what? Since you have it here, I love this page. I'll put this page up for the. I'll put this page up for everybody to see. I really like this page a lot. Wow, this is some good stuff. Let me put up another. Wow. I like your style. I like your style. Here, I'm going to put these up for the chat to see as examples of your art. This is good stuff, man. So Jeffrey, hang on. Let me throw these up into the live chat for everybody. I think these are definitely cool to see, and I love it when Imagination Connoisseurs send stuff in. So I'm going to throw these up. Here's one. Let me put you guys to take a look at. This is again Jeffrey Brown's art. So there's one panel, and again, I really like this. I really like the vibrancy of it. There's a lot of, I like the color, the sense of, I mean, there's almost a sense of movement in here. It's great stuff. Yeah, it's really nice. And then here is another page that I will put up. And again, really like this. I really like the vibrancy of it. I really like the panels. It really leaps out at you. So Jeffrey, thanks for sending that in. Now that you're the question you asked me about who did I think did things better. I think the Ultimate Marvel Universe was done actually quite a bit better than the New 52 Rebirth stuff. I really liked, especially, I really liked the Ultimates, the Avengers reboot, the Ultimates. I thought they were great, and there was just something. Look, did I like the Marvel Universe, the Ultimate Marvel Universe's version of Galactus? No, but I think for the most part it was pretty good. I felt it was really adult. I thought it was really interesting extrapolations on what was going on. And I felt the New 52 and the Rebirth stuff, again, I to be honest, I'm not as familiar. I want to pull out my New 52 omnibus. I'm not as familiar with it as I was. I read a lot more of the Marvel Ultimates universe than I did of the Rebirth stuff, but I just liked it more. Maybe that's because I just felt it was more adult, and I thought it was better conceived, and they had I thought the writing was a bit better, where the New 52 stuff seemed kind of all over the place, to be honest. But yeah, there you go. This one comes from Hiboric. Greetings and salutations. I hope everyone is well and keeping strong. The universe has been treating me all right as a simple casual making his way through life, so I have no complaints. But recently I was inspired to whip up a letter. So I was having a think, and I was hoping to share some of these thoughts. First, for a quick update from my rewatch journey through DS9. My favorite episode so far is House of Quark. It was pretty good shit. I haven't finished Season 3 yet, but very soon. I like using DS9 as my palate cleanser of shows right now. Slam down a few easy watches, then enjoy a few episodes of some damn good television. Gotta love Netflix. Star Wars spoilers further ahead for any of those who haven't seen Rebels. So I want to gently bring up Thrawn. Grand Admiral Thrawn. I added that Grand Admiral part in. He was an old fave of mine, and I'm glad, too, to see his character come to life on screen. I'm very eager to see where the World Between Worlds, Mirror Universe, I already forgot the name, comes into play in the future. Apologies as I may be stepping on toes when I say this, but I've always noticed that using time or dimensional travel stuff is tricky. The conclusion where Ezra is talking to Grand Palpy and he was being tempted with his parents, I had to take a moment and smile and just enjoy it. Imagine resisting that temptation, the whole universe at your fingertips. I think we may see some interesting shenanigans, especially with the load of new content upcoming. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Thank you for allowing me to share them. To our illustrious leader, Rob, the mods, the chat, and the rest of the Post-Geek Singularity community, I hope you have a good day. May the Force be with you. Hiborik. I don't know if this is a website YouTube quality issue. Could be a better fit on the Facebook page, but I feel like I could contribute to the community and do my part with some light-hearted nothings in letter form. Well, thanks for that quick one, Hiborik. I appreciate it. Yeah, the World Beyond World, they're talking about using that to retcon the sequel trilogy, which is never going to happen. But yeah, I think that was kind of a mistake. I think multi-dimensions and time travel does not belong in the Star Wars universe. I don't think it does. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I don't think it's great. I'm not down with it. Put it that way. This one comes from Skywalker Zorl. Hello, Sir RMB. This is a long one. Okay, well, I got to read this in the spirit it's intended. Hello, Sir RMB. This is a long one, so get comfy, motherfuckers. Coming from a British person, that may not sound quite right, but hey, just imagine Samuel L. Jackson saying it and it'll be fine. You possibly may have seen my name when you've been involved in the live questions part of the John Campea show. I'm the idiot who gushes over Man of Steel and Zack Snyder in general, and I said a thank you to John for making his Man of Steel editorial, which I know you love too, the movie I mean, and you've spoken about it with him many times. Obviously, I can't wait for Zack Snyder's Justice League. Yeah, fucking metal, man! Yeah! So, Sir R&B, I'm just reading it the way it's written. This letter will consist of one sincere apology and several eternal thank yous. Also, something in the post-credits, P.S., that may sound like a shameless plug of my novel, but it's actually connected to you and makes sense once I explain, I promise. Okay, the apology. As I was late to the whole YouTube thing, long story for another time or a letter, therefore I've only been aware of you since the last year or so of the great John Schnepp's Collider run. Well, that's okay. I know I should be ashamed. But anyway, now the point is, now I'm all about the RMB. When you were absent from Heroes, I was devastated for many obvious reasons that viewers of Robservations will already know. So when you started appearing on the only entertainment channel I was then subscribed to, i.e. John Campea, I was Ghibli. However, I didn't think I should bother subscribing to your own new YouTube channel, as what was the point? I could get my R&B fix via your regular appearances with Campea. Why bother getting the same stuff on another channel? I'm busy. I can't be spending all this damn time watching YouTube videos on the same damn things. Well, on this past Monday, the 22nd of February, for some random reason, I decided to click on a video in my recommended feed titled The Lessons of Zack Snyder's Odyssey to Finish the Snyder Cut. Because, as I've mentioned, I can't wait for the Snyder Cut, and the title hooked me. Oh, spoiler alert, it was your video. I thought, screw it, I'll just watch a couple of minutes and see what the gist is and go about my day and see you later on the John Campea show. Rob, listen when I say this, sir. I watched the whole thing over 2 days. Rob, are you listening? Are your viewers listening? Good. This was the greatest video I have ever seen on YouTube, ever. Not a movie-related video, not an entertainment industry-related video. Video. Full stop. Or, as your American, period. Why I hear fellow imagination connoisseurs cry who haven't seen this video yet. You read out an entire article, a long article I might add, and made a phenomenal piece even better by breaking it down and adding even more context and content to it. It made me, a Zack Snyder fanatic, somehow even more hyped for a movie than I thought I couldn't possibly get any more hype for, because you made me re-engage with this injustice of Justice League and to care even deeper about the subject it was about, not just the subject it was covering. Because of not being able to get the video out of my head, you helped me realize that the Burnettwork is so much more here than just movie news. Robservations are editorials, think pieces, and fan community entertainment all wrapped up into one beautiful bounty of treasure. And more on the other show's impact on me in a second, as that ties into the thank you section. But first, let's get that apology out of the way, Rob. I am truly sorry for not getting here sooner. Well, you can go back and watch everything. And not grasping the fact that one of the main reasons why you appear on the John Campea Show and other multiple shows is that it also helps you promote your own channel or show. So clowns like me can go, hey, I like that guy. I'd like to see more of him. Oh, look, I can. Because he's literally telling me where to find his content. I am an ignorant, dumber than a bag of rocks buffoon. Truly the dumbest motherfucker in the world. Okay, to the thank yous. Rob, after doing my own personal odyssey into Robservations, I did something accidentally that may go down as one of the best accidents of all time in my life. It is a genuine contender for the #1 spot. I accidentally clicked on a video that came up on my recommended feed as I'd been binging on all that Robservations goodness, but it wasn't a Robservations episode. It was a show called Fully Articulated. I clicked on this episode because it had your name and the thumbnail was blue, just like Robservations, and I wasn't paying attention. I soon realized that I was watching a live stream with a man from my neck of the woods banging on about toys, and I'm like, nah, I'm out. But as I reached for the dial, I realized I had some admin errands to do, and I might leave it on the back while I was taking care of these menial tasks. Fuck it, just have some noise to take my mind off these boring tasks. Rob, within a few minutes, I stopped what I was doing because you and this gentleman started to lift up to the screen pieces of art that are also known as hot toys. Rob, I don't remember what happened next. If I finished the errands, Rob, I can't even remember what they were. Did I even have errands? I had no fucking clue because I had been hyperspaced into a dimension that I thought I'd left behind 25 or so years ago. Now, you might say, well, that's nice, buddy. You had some fun remembering that in your childhood. You were obsessed with action figures and you were impressed with how much they've come along, and that was an enjoyable 2 hours and change, and move on with your life. However, this is where the dimension pulled out a memory Jedi mind trick on me. It slapped my unconscious awake to remind me that I had bought a display case and some small stands to house a few little relatively inexpensive memorabilia I picked up in a local comic book shop to help them out. But it was just thrown in the corner, uninterested and uninspired, just ready to move after COVID ends. Rob, brah, I've put everything back up and reorganized my memorabilia after watching your video, and I've begun a campaign of strategy and research to buy as many display cabinets as financially feasible for all the new hot toys that I have to buy because I accidentally clicked on a fucking video I didn't even want to fucking watch. What the actual fuck, Rob? Now, why in the world would I go through all this trouble to thank you for making me feel the need to buy a bunch of toys and wreck my bank balance in the process? I mean, the whole concept sounds completely ridiculously stupid. Well, here's why. At the beginning of this week, I was dead in the water. I suffer from multiple mental and physical problems. I'll spare you a shopping list of the diagnoses I have, but safe to say when they all fire off, it's bad. Really bad. And for the last couple of weeks, it has been one of those such times. I go through periods of extreme lows when these episodes occur. And this week, at the start, I thought I might be done. Then a knight walked into town by the name of Sir Robert Meyer Burnett and reminded me of who I was, a lover of genre culture. He lit up a fireworks display in my head that brought the kid who played for days with her action figures back and designing elaborate scenarios for my characters to play. He brought me back to life, Rob, eternally. Thank you. Here's those end credits I mentioned earlier regarding my novel. As I said, I have multiple mental and physical issues, and I use genre to escape and or channel them through writing. It used to be toys, but then you grow up, or apparently not, it would seem. Thanks, Rob and Az. So anyway, all of the above was amazing and welcome, and let's face it, necessary enough. But this asteroid field of a week had one more trick up its Jedi robe sleeve. As I said, I wrote a novel and published it last month, now available on Amazon. It's called Maria, written by my real pen name, A.K. Alexander. It's a World War II international spy revenge thriller. It's adapted from my festival award-winning screenplay of the same name. I adapted it because I was getting frustrated that despite all this award recognition, I could not even get an agent to call me back, let alone take me on and get the thing optioned or made. Now, when adapting it, I had to add some stuff in order to make it work as in novel format. One of those things was to begin the book with a prologue consisting of the military detective talking into a tape recorder. The point of this prologue was to illustrate to the reader that, yes, this is a spy thriller in the spirit of Ian Fleming's Bond, and intentionally accessible, but I didn't want to insult anyone's intelligence because I feel all art, especially genre fiction, should seek to strike that balance. In film terms, my favorite examples of this are the works of Coppola, Spielberg, Scorsese, etc., but I couldn't figure out a way to explain that in the detective's tape recorder speech. Then a word ray-gunned its way into my mind, a word that when I wrote the screenplay I had no knowledge of. A word of a cool guy who appeared regularly on a show I liked called Heroes, and it taught me. Boom! Today, out of the blue, the paperback copy arrived in the mail because of COVID, I guess. Things had delayed its arrival. Because of the delay, I must have forgotten it was coming. The copy was so I could check for discrepancies, etc., and as I was doing this, I came across a word in the prologue I think you may recognize. Verisimilitude. Yes, today, out of the blue, in this week of reaffirming in my head and heart the great Knight Sir R&B back within his rightful place atop the throne of guardian of the genre, my fucking book arrived. What the actual fuck? Prologue. That eerie click and hiss of a tape recorder turning on. A cigar, brandy-graveled, smashed glass, yet oddly homely comforting voice of a Liverpudlian man in his 50s, beginning his first attempt at a confession. But what he can now perceive will surely not be his last. Right, yes, here we are then. I must warn you I've had a drink. I've had 5. I don't know, really, what I expect to achieve from doing all of this, but at this stage, who the fuck cares? Everyone that could ruin my career or name have vanished in some fashion or another. No kids, any family I have gone with the war. Who the fuck cares? So let's be fair to anyone that will be hearing these recordings or reading their transcripts for the first time and be honest with myself and, of course, to whoever's listening. Therefore, you should be made aware that I'm not doing these tapings for my country. That time is past. Those days are over. They ended last night after the gala. A practice that still astounds me, this practice of handing over of power as though we're all in attendance at a tribal or religious ceremony. Such pomp and nonsense. We're not supposed to do that type of thing, you know. That's what the world believes, isn't it? None of the many stiff upper lip stereotype. Bollocks. Bollocks. No fuss. Never explain. Never complain. The Empire. The Brits are coming. Fuck me, the lies we tell ourselves. Though the band were good, though the band were good, 4 lads from Liverpool, this one lad from Liverpool. Thought was put into it, even though it was most probably a dig from the southern establishment. I didn't care. A shot of nostalgia is always welcome. I'm getting quite partial to this rock and roll stuff. It's as though some clever clogs invented a version of speeded up blues. And all that lot north of the Mersey Tunnel said, you know what, lads? We can certainly do something with these tunes. Yes, lads, can't we ever? The young'uns have gone crackers for it, dancing on the cobbles like nutters. Truth be told, I'd do the same if it weren't for all the scrap metal and bullet casings in my nerve endings. Like the blues, it gets a hold of you, young or old. I get the need to shake it off. I really do. I'm not dead. Not yet. I got speaking to the boys at the bar. God, I miss that accent. Of course, I had to dull mine to get along. I guess now it's less Seuss, more Liverpudlian. Anyhow, it turns out we're from the same area, Allerton. Well, I was born in Toxteth, but Uncle Gary lived there, and I went there to live with Uncle Gary when Mum went. Toxteth by descent, if you like. A good man, I miss him. I miss 'em all. It's been so long since I've been back. I should go back. I should definitely go back. This Shankly fella seems like he's got the Reds going finely. It's been ages since I'd seen a game local-wise. Last one I saw happened to be this summer. England, West Germany at Wembley. I won't lie. That's a perk I'll miss. I know, I shouldn't say that. Government employees, of course, don't receive gifts. No, this was because I was there in an official capacity. Of course I was. But really, when you think about it, were I not everywhere in an official capacity? Wasn't I? Yeah. Blimey, lad, you ain't half rambling. I'm sorry, whoever you are. This is the first time I've attempted doing something like this, in this way, and I've had a drink. I've had 5. I best begin, hadn't I? Because I don't know what fashion this tape will be heard, or, what organization or what have you is going to get a hold of this. There will have to be some vagueness. With names, I mean. There has to be. Some of the family are still alive. I've always done my best to protect them, and that won't change now, but I cannot let this disappear with the ghosts. I have to tell someone, something, before I go or I'm taken. So not to repeat the same mistakes again and again and again, year after year, decade after decade, because we still do, and they will continue unless somebody takes a risk to tell them what happens in these dark rooms, where people's lives are changed forever without their consent or knowledge. To not just have some record for the next generation would be the real sin. It has many names: the Baker Street Irregulars, due to its geographical location, the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, and without a shadow of a doubt, the most dramatic, Churchill's Secret Army. But officially, when I joined, it was the SOE, now known, of course, as MI6. Everything you hear will have happened. So if I didn't see it, if I wasn't there, if I wasn't told it, then it didn't happen. Or won't be in this, what you could say, I guess, the closest thing I'll ever get to a memoir. So vague or not, it's all true. The time, the dates, the locations, the figures, the family. It may be me telling you this story, but be in no doubt that this is not my story. It is Maria's. It will always be heard. This goes on and on and on and on and on. Wait a minute, I can't keep reading this. I'll be reading this forever. Let me, I love this though. This is great. I'll read this. I'll order this book. Here, I'm going to put the link in the, I didn't know, you tricked me into reading this, but I love your letter so much. I'm going to put your Amazon link right here in the live chat. Here you go. So that is your book. I will read this. I like this opening. I think this is great. How strange the book came on this week while I was remembering what a titan Sir R&B was, and how I'd been asleep at the wheel that I forgot how, even unconsciously, he was taking that wheel and steering me safely home back to Tatooine. I'm home, Rob. I'm safe. Eternally. Thank you. I'm now a fully signed up member of the Burnettwork and the Post-Geek Singularity. I'm home, Rob. I am safe. Eternally. Thank you. Well, listen, I'm sorry I didn't read all of this, but you know what? I didn't know that this was going to be so long, and that I didn't realize it was the whole thing, but I love this. I will buy your book. You know what? I'll go buy your book right now. Why not? I'm buying your book. Ooh, it's got a cool cover. Look at this. Maria, No One Is Ever Who You Think They Are by A.K. Alexander. Before MI5 and MI6, there was the Special Operations Executive, the SOE, and their deadliest weapon is a woman. Oh man, I'm buying this right now. There you go. Buy with one click. So, thanks for writing in. I appreciate that, Skywalker Zarel. That's very great. Congratulations on getting that book published. Most excellent. I love it. This comes from Keith Polidano. Keith Polidano, our comic doctor. Hi, Rob. As you know, I've been a very long-time viewer. I've always intended to write to you, but time is something I usually don't have an abundance of. But I decided to write you a quick letter finally today after listening to episode 629, where you discussed the new Star Trek animated series that is currently in the works. I have listened to, I don't know how many lectures given by you on the current state of Star Trek, and while I do not despise the current iterations of Trek as passionately as you or many others here on the Post-Geek Singularity, I most certainly do see the cracks in the foundation of what was once not only a highly entertaining sci-fi TV show, but also a very important one as well. I do not watch current Star Trek. I do agree that they're steering Star Trek down a darker path, one filled with profanity and unnecessary violence. Thus, I've opted out. All that said, after listening to you discuss your personal and professional affiliation with Star Trek time and time again, and seeing that you are living in Hollywood and working in the industry, have you ever tried to position yourself closer to Star Trek? I know you worked on the special features for the next-gen DVDs, but has an opportunity ever presented itself where you could have been more critically involved in the creation of modern Trek? Excuse me, I, for one, can't think of a better advocate of Star Trek than you. If you could share any info or stories, I, for one, would love to hear it. If you're unable to discuss, I completely understand. Thanks so much for all your hard work, Rob. Your dedication and drive are second to none. All the best, and hopefully I can find the time to send you a second letter someday. Kevin, the Comic Doctor. Well, it's a great letter, Kevin. You know, a lot of people wonder about that. I honestly, the only time I ever tried to get involved with modern Star Trek was when I first moved to LA. During the second season of Next Generation, I was green. I was 22 years old. I wrote an outline for a story that was, I thought it had a good idea, but it was pretty terrible because I wanted to work in connections to half the first season of Next Gen. But it just wasn't very good, and it was called Lost Data, and it was about, as you might presume, Data getting lost, and he ends up finding a spacefaring energy cloud, and his shuttlecraft gets engulfed in this cloud, and Data has a dream or a nightmare where he's a gang member on Tasha Yar's home planet before she was rescued, where there are rape gangs and everything, and he lives out this life, and this is pre-Inner Light or anything like that, but he lives out this life with Tasha Yar, and how it because it turns out that he had been researching her life after Skin of Evil and after she passed away, and so he had all this information in his positronic brain about her life, and so he was having this dream, this very vivid dream, and the episode would all be part of that dream, where he was a gang member that was on Tasha's side and trying to survive in this failed colony, and he had to deal with losing people. And for the first time in his life, he really felt and understood what it was like to actually lose human beings either under your command. And then it turns out that when he wakes up, that this spacefaring energy cloud was actually, it wanted to be admitted to the Federation, and it didn't have any way to do that. When it found Data and found his positronic brain and found the shuttlecraft, its appeal to the Federation was the story that that what Data had experienced and what Data went through. The cloud, the entity, was hoping that the story of what Data had experienced would show that this cloud was empathetic and was worthy of entrance into the Federation. That was my story. That was my story outline. And at the time, my uncle got it to an agent, a pretty high-powered agent in Hollywood, and the agent was very nice and wrote back some notes and just said he didn't think that's what kind of a story Star Trek was buying during its second season, because there was a writer's strike going on. So that was my one story, and then I submitted a story. I worked on a story with my friend Jim Cole, who wrote a script, and we did a whole Star Trek story. But it's kind of a long story to explain. But those are the only two times that I ever tried to get involved in actual Star Trek. I've always been on either the consulting end or the fan end of it, and I think the reason I've never tried is I don't have any, other than directing 5 episodes of Femme Fatales for HBO Cinemax, I have no ties to television. Television is a very different world from the feature world, and especially television writing. I have a lot of television writer friends, and it's a whole universe unto itself, and I've just never done it. So I have absolutely no qualifications to work, I think, in an official capacity on Star Trek. I mean, if I was and directing a Star Trek episode, while it might be fun, wouldn't be, you don't really have much control over what kind of episode. They give you the script and you direct the script. So I've never really looked into it that way. I mean, I would, if Eric Jedrinson's Star Trek The Beginning script, I would love to direct something like that if I had that script. There were changes I'd want to make to it, but not many. I love that script. I love where he was going, and I think it should get made. I mean, I would do that. And if someone said to me, Rob, you can make any Star Trek project you want, I would probably adapt a Star Trek novel and make that one of my favorite Star Trek novels into a Star Trek film. But you have to be part of that world. Otherwise, it's really difficult. It is very difficult to get involved in television if you're not a part of that world. So I've never really tried, and that's what I was kind of hoping that the Axanar project would be. Making the Axanar feature film, I was hoping I could, get into doing that, and that would get my yayas out, unfortunately. So, which is a bummer. Anyway, let me jump in and see what you guys are saying in the old live chat. Robert Conrad sends in a tip and says, resending, my first was skipped by mistake. Oh, really enjoyed starting my day with one of your short take shows and chatting with fellow supporters. The story, my mom had the hots for Robert Conrad in Wild Wild West, so she named me after him. Conrad is my middle name. You really are named after Robert Conrad. That's the greatest thing ever. That's fantastic. Real Salvo sent in a super chat and says, oh, this is from yesterday, but I'll read them again. As someone who lived in China, expansion's very much on Beijing's mind. They're not our friends, however much they claim it. Yeah, yeah. Like I said, the way they've taken over Africa, we let them too. It was bad. Mr. Tickletrunk said, Shapungal was best described by Duncan Trussell as, their music is so fucking cool, but you need 3 synthesizers and a fucking spaceship to do it. Yeah, I'm all about that. I gotta hear that. Chloe sends in a tip and says, the best movie with a night on the town the best movie with a night on the town comedy movie theme. License to Drive with the 2 Coreys, The Night Before with Keanu Reeves, Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, Adventures in Babysitting, or another movie not mentioned here. Oh, I would say that After Hours. Martin Scorsese's After Hours. I would say that. That's definitely the movie that I would pick for a yeah. That's what I would do. After Hours. And also, you know what? Another movie I like that doesn't get enough love is John Landis's Into the Night. I like Into the Night. But your picks are good. Preston Bell sends in a super chat and says, Rob, my excitement for Zack Snyder's Justice League is equaled by your own. So stoked to see Zack's vision get executed. Most of my friends are like, meh, thanks for all you do. Well, Preston, your friends are wrong. It's gonna look, whether people love it or not, I mean, it's definitely going to be fun to watch, if nothing else. And I hope people think that it's not supposed to change anyone's life, but I definitely, I can't wait to see it. I'm very excited. Our friend Eric Gant is here. Eric Gant says, my WandaVision series finale prediction. White Vision slowly regains his memory but is killed by Wanda to save Hex Vision. Ooh. Immediately afterwards, Hex Vision sacrifices himself to save the kids. This breaks the Hex, resulting in the death of the kids. Ooh, that's pretty dark, man. That's pretty dark. I don't know. I do think that White Vision will survive, but he's going to be not what he is. I think Hex Vision's going to be gone. I think Wanda is going to leave with Agatha Harkness and maybe the yet unrevealed, even bigger bad. They're going to light off into the multiverse together, and it's going to be a very sad ending. Calvin Bowes says, tomorrow's Braxton's birthday. You told me to remind you. I will remember, Calvin. Braxton's going to be 6, obviously. I read Torrin Atkinson's Willow wrote in a letter, which I read earlier. Willow says, also congratulations on your latest win for Tango Shalom at the Toronto Film Channel Awards. By the way, if you go to Toronto Film Channel up until 9 o'clock tonight Pacific time, you should be able to watch Tango Shalom. I know some of you have watched it in the chat, and I want to thank you for that, for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's not our normal imagination connoisseur affair, but thanks for watching it. Paul in Long Beach says, just finished Tango Shalom. Rob, congrats on being involved with such a charming, fun film. Had me laughing from the start during the first dinner scene with the scene stealing Mrs. Taylor and Mrs. Kazan. twirling rabbi had me, though. Just wonderful. Well, thanks, Paul. I'm glad you took it in the spirit it's intended. I mean, we don't usually watch those things here. And, for me, it's like when I am hired to work on a project, you try and realize the best version of that project that you can. And to me, it's always a creative chore. When I was hired to edit the film, I thought I knew we had our work cut out for us, and it took us a really long time to get the movie to where it is. And there were times when I doubted we'd ever even get it finished. But I'm glad you liked it. Thank you for watching. Stubble McShave sends in a tip and says, speaking of coming to America, I saw an interview with Arsenio Hall. He said that since there's so many good comedians in the movie, they thought of doing a comedy tour as a promotion. Unfortunately, that pandemic ground that to a halt. What a great idea that would have been. Can you imagine? That would have been amazing. Mexican Iron Man is here, the birthday boy. Sends in a super chat and says, hail the great R&B. Kudos to the awesome Post-Geek Singularity. Howdy to the amazing wenches and the chat stream. Great show, Rob. Well, Mexican Iron Man, you know what? Anyone who says howdy to amazing wenches is a friend of mine. So it's good to have you here, sir. And it was good streaming with you the other day. And thanks for supporting the channel. I very much appreciate it. Tom Jr. Jackson sends in a tip and says, Rob, I watched Tango Shalom today. It was a brilliant film and quite a sweet film and very enjoyable. If available, I would add this film to my physical and digital media collection. Also, another crackin' show as well. Well, from your mouth to God's ears, Tom. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Tango Shalom, for those of you who don't know, it did win Best Independent Film at the Toronto Film Channel Awards, which is pretty nice. I mean, they seem to really like us in Canada. We sold Free Enterprise in Canada too. Maybe I should just move to Canada and make movies there because apparently my sensibility works in Canada. But thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad you like the show. Anonymous sends in a tip and says, at least Agatha had the high ground after the last episode. Yes, she did. It's going to be interesting to see where that goes. My prediction is, I think Agatha is an agent. I think she's working with Doctor Strange. I think she's there to find out what the hell is going on. And I think we're going to see the twist in the end of some kind, but that's kind of what I thought. Jeff Yerke and Mrs. Y. Mrs. Yerke. Jeff Yerke says, hi, Rob. If I missed your take on this, I apologize, but what were your final thoughts on The Expanse Season 5? It seemed to Mrs. Y and me that the creator's attempts to present a more human story was brave, but not entirely successful. I agree. I thought the first half of Season 5, I guess the first 4 episodes, were great, and I think it got a little bogged down with these human interest storylines, and I think that the one thing that was missing, there was all this intrigue at the beginning with these Martian ships and where are they going, and I really think they should have incorporated that storyline into the latter half of the season. I got really bored with the Naomi stuff on the ship. She kept going back and forth trying to contact everybody. I would have liked to have spent a little bit more time with the Martian revolutionaries and what was actually going on. I thought it was weird because normally the show would be intercutting between all these things, but after the first 4 episodes, which I thought were excellent, they got a little bogged down. I still think that the season was good, but I felt we were owed like 2 or 3 more episodes of other intriguing stuff that was happening that we didn't see. So that's kind of my where I was going, where I was thinking about that. Anonymous says, "Hey Rob, I'm an Orthodox Jew. Will Tango Shalom piss me off, or should I just watch it?" Ooh, that, you know what? Your opinion would be most interesting to me. I'm very curious as to what you, obviously the characters are Hasidic, but I would be very curious to hear what you think of the movie, to be honest, because we did have some Orthodox Jews as some technical advisors, but yeah. So tell me. Anonymous says, Rob, do you sleep with your hot toys at night? Well, if Elizabeth counts, there's no shame if you do. I do not sleep with my hot toys at night. Only Elizabeth, the greatest hot toy of all, I suppose. People became members. Raygun Media became a member. Philip Moore John 24, Brian Johnson have become members, but you guys have become already members. But thank you for that. I appreciate that. The Physicality channel sends in a super chat and says, still waiting for them to bring back the smiley Bajorn girl who died in The Next Generation. Oh, man. Ensign Sito. Ensign Sito from the First Duty. Oh, no, not the First Duty. Lower Decks. Ensign Sito from Lower Decks. Although she was in the First Duty, too. Ensign Sito, who died. Yeah, she was hella cute, as they say. Yeah, I really liked her a lot. It's too bad. Too bad what happened to her. Cinema Gulp sends in a super chat and says, Dr. Seuss must live on. However, please wipe from existence the Mike Myers 2003 film, The Cat in the Hat. It should be forever expunged from our memories. I know. I am with you there. I am with you there. Anonymous sends in a tip and says, have you ever met anyone that liked Battlefield Earth? Well, I'll tell you, not the movie. But I read the book. I read the book when it came out in 1982. It was a big deal. It was a big deal when it came out, and I kind of liked it. I kind of liked the book. I mean, it was like 1,200 pages. The movie, not so much. Not so much. Julius, our sommelier, the actual sommelier of the channel. Julius Goodwin's here. How are you, sir? If you are not a fan of parallel universes or multiverses in Star Trek, I love how do you feel about the Star Trek Mirror Universe tales? Oh, I got a new job, by the way. As always, stay safe, and I'll try and be around more. Julius, congratulations on the new job. I liked the Mirror Universe. I love the Mirror Universe in the original series because it was done once. It was so intriguing, and it was never done in Next Generation, although, they had the multiverse in certain episodes, like Parallels or things like that. But I just mean in Star Wars. I don't like the idea of multiverses in Star Wars or time travel in Star Wars. I don't think that would be good. But I like a good mirror universe story. But I still think the best it's ever been done is in the original series, by far. I think it's become too far away from what it is. I think it's not very nuanced, and now it's just like, here's the evil version of all these characters, when it wasn't just that. And I thought the original does a much smarter job. Bob Quall says, I just finished watching Tango Shalom with a brief break to watch Starship 10 nail the frickin' landing. Oh, did it really? Shit. I missed that. I got to go back and watch it on... Oh, God, I would love to have seen that. Woot. Loved your film. Kudos. The Starship landing wasn't too bad either. Tell you there are worse ways to start an evening. Well, Bob, thanks for watching it. That's very nice of you. It's very sweet of you to say. I didn't realize Starship 10 was launching. That would be SpaceX's Starship 10, and it launched and they landed it. Oh man, I want to see that. I'm sure it's on YouTube, so I'll go watch it. Nick Parrish says, "What's up, Rob? Hope all is well today." So maybe it's just me, but the biggest question I'm hoping to get answered when Godzilla vs. Kong comes out is how a bunch of mere humans managed to chain Kong on top of a ship. Are you not curious about that, Rob? Nick, I am right there with you. I have thought about that. What Nick is saying, obviously, if you watch the trailers for Godzilla vs. King Kong is chained to the top of an aircraft carrier. How did they get him there, and how are they able to get chains on him? I'm sure they drug him. They do something, and then they bring him over there and chain him down. But it would seem to me that with his strength that he would be able to escape. But hopefully they'll explain that, because we need some verisimilitude. Absolutely. Maybe we'll get it. Maybe we won't. Justin Jorgensen is here and says, "Hey, Rob and all. First off, I'm honored to join the mod team. Well, we're happy to have you. Love being here. I'm halfway through season 2 of TNG, and season 1 is better in my opinion. Yeah, well, there's definitely an argument to be made there. I definitely feel like Trek works better as a show than movies. Thoughts? I still enjoy season 2. Can't wait for season 3. Season 3, Justin, is so much better. Wait till you see season 3. There's so much good stuff in that. I think the real problem is let's be honest, most of the Star Trek movies that have been made are just they're not that good. And I think of I love Star Trek the Motion Picture. I know a lot of people don't, but it's my favorite. I love Star Trek 2. But I think all the rest of the Star Trek movies have suffered for various reasons. I could get into those reasons, but I still think Star Trek works great as a show if you have people that know what to do with it. Julian Ortega says, "Hey Rob, will you be streaming your Zack Snyder marathon? I'm the only one in my family willing to do it, so I'm trying to get a group online and have drinks." We should do that. Maybe I'll just sit here and we'll turn it on and we'll watch together. You know, that'd be fun. Maybe I'll just do a live stream where here I'm just sitting here watching. We'll just do a live stream and watch. I think that'd be great. That's actually funny, but we should do it. I mean, I really want to do that. Nick Parrish sends in a tip and says, "Oh, and more good news for theaters, Rob. Sony apparently saw the Tom and Jerry numbers as a sign to move Peter Rabbit up almost a whole month. Do you think if things continue to steadily improve, we'll see more movies move up instead of playing it safe?" I hope so. I mean, there's no movies to see, so hopefully they'll open. I mean, look, when the governor of Texas just opens up the state, yep, we're open, 100%. I think the greatest experiment we'll ever have in terms of this is going to be in Texas. I hope everyone stays safe, but Texas is maskless, open, at 100% there. That's crazy. Brandon Sheehy says, "Rob, there are 4, count it, 4 DeLoreans in Hill Valley on November 5th, 1955. 2 from the future timeline. Old Biff stole it earlier as the first version. Back to the Future 1 DeLorean and Wild West DeLorean in the cave, all the same car to boot. A useless but interesting film fact." You know, now you make me want to go look, and I think you are there. Nick Parrish became a member. Thanks, Nick. I appreciate that. Brendan, but yeah, you're right. You are correct. You are correct yes. I think. Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess that's true. 4 DeLoreans, and they're all the same DeLorean. It's like it's like Primer, the movie Primer. Rice Krispie Treat sends in a tip and says, "Hi, Mr. Smith. First time, long time." This is so weird. "Kevin, please don't leave Hollywood for Canada. As someone with many girlfriends there, I can attest to the lure of the Great White North, but it would be close to Cleveland if you came to the Toronto region." Between being called John and Kevin Smith, I love you guys and girls and gentle beings and kind souls. Kaz Graphics says, "Hello, Kaz, our cheesemonger. All of us at VN Graphics really enjoyed your film. We watched it in the office today." Well, I really like my VN Graphics glass that it never leaves my side. I am glad you liked the movie. And you could watch in the office. I love that. Makes me happy. Alan Moore says, "Why isn't that a Dave Gibbons Dr. Manhattan on your shirt, you wanker?" Well, I don't know what to tell you. It is a DC shirt though. I'm sorry, Alan. You're one of my heroes. I didn't mean to let you down. Attic Hatch Sound, Bob Koal says, "So now Starship 10 blew up some minutes after the landing." Damn. Oh, really? That's a bummer. I don't know what to say. Well, ladies and gentlemen, kind souls, gentle beings from across these 28 known galaxies, I'm going to bring an end to Robservations, episode number 633. This was a fun show. What a rollicking good time we all had. I want to thank you all for supporting the channel via super chats and tips and all that. Hey, if you want, smash that like button, subscribe, do all those things. It always helps the channel, the analytics. Hit the like button. Always those like buttons. That helps. I always forget to ask that. I want to thank everybody for writing letters. And if you want to write a letter to me, you can go to the Burnettwork.net website and send me a letter there. So, oh wait, Mike Bodden sent me a message. I wonder if I need to know this message now before I jump off the phone. Maybe he's reminding me of something pertinent. Let's see if you're the channel, if you're on the channel, if you're at the VIP level or a friend of the channel as a member of the channel. We do have an after party, another one of our fine after parties tomorrow, which will be pretty good because we can talk WandaVision and see what we think about it before it happens. So I wanted to remind you that, Mike. Thank you for that, Mike. I want to thank the moderating staff, beginning with Mike Bodden, who even texts me to moderate things. I want to thank the Richard, and I want to thank all of our other moderators. Justin Jorgensen's here. Joshua Levesque is here. Greg Smith is here. Darren Seeley is here. Everybody is here. Thank you all for being great moderators. Brian Hepburn is here. Oh, all you great new moderators. That's incredible. I don't know who else is here. Justin Toner's here, too. I want to thank all you guys for being the great moderators that you are. Let's see. I don't know what else to say. I don't know about whining about movies yet. Got to find out. Elizabeth is again buried under work. I know everybody's bummed out that we haven't been doing whining about movies, but we've been because of Elizabeth and her work schedule. But we must get back. We must get back on that horse. I miss doing whining about movies. And on that note, I will not be on the John Campea show tomorrow. However, we will be on Az's channel at noon doing Hot Toys. And I have one thing to show that's kind of neat. That's you'll see. So join us at noon for Hot Toys on Az's channel, and then I'll be back here probably in the afternoon around 2:30 or 3, depending on how long we go, and then we'll do the after party show after that. And that's all the news that's fit to print. And on that note, everyone, I want to say, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. All you have to do is listen. And with that, I would say to all of you, have a better day. And you can still watch Tango Shalom up to 9 o'clock at night on the Toronto Film, TorontoFilmChannel.com. It's free. It's just there right now. Anybody can go watch it. I want to thank everybody who did watch it. That's very nice of you. And it did win Best Independent Film from the Toronto Film Channel. So that's always very exciting. So thank you all for that.